So in this webinar, we're going to go through everyone's sleep questions and teach you how to get the best night's sleep. There's many different kinds of sleep issues, so I want to go through as many as possible. And first, we're going to go through a slide, and then I'm going to go through questions. The opinions here are my own opinions, or if Dr. Greg gives opinions, those are his opinions alone and not necessarily related to Self-Decode. But we have him here, and he's got very knowledgeable. He's got an ND, he's got a master's, 2 masters, and he's very knowledgeable in a lot of these areas. So I think it's going to be fun today. All right, let's get started. How to improve sleep quality with your DNA. And it's not only sleep quality, but we're also any kind of sleep issue we're going to be talking about. Okay. And yeah, and just to mention, Dr. Greg is also our DNA health coach, Self-Decode's DNA health coach. Okay, so 68% of people struggle with some issue related to sleep at least once a week. So this is a very common occurrence, and most people, almost everybody has some kind of sleep issue sometime in their life. So regular solutions aren't working for people, and DNA targeted solutions can help a lot better. We're going to go through a lot of things, though. It's not only DNA. We're going to go through looking at different kinds of solutions, but DNA can help. Looking at your DNA can help answer a lot of these questions as well. Just a little bit about me. I had a lot of health problems growing up. One of them was sleep. I had, in the past, I pretty much had every issue with sleep, issues falling asleep, issues waking up in the middle of the night and not going back to sleep, not getting enough sleep, not feeling refreshed after waking up. So I've dealt with all these issues, and I figured out how to overcome them very reliably, right? Now if I don't get a good night's sleep, it means I just didn't do the things that I was supposed to be doing, which happens once in a while. But essentially, as long as I follow what I'm supposed to be doing, I have a good night's sleep every night. So, and that's not a natural thing for me. I had many, many different kinds of sleep issues. So, okay. Let's see. And the other thing is I've, in the past, I struggled with getting enough REM sleep. I didn't usually have, based on my Oura Ring, I never had an issue with slow wave sleep, but I've been able to, really get a lot of it. So I figured out how to get more. Normal is like 2 hours, and I'm getting about, and some people don't get any slow wave sleep. I'm getting about 3, sometimes 4 hours is slow wave sleep. That's quite a lot. And then, okay, so I've read through thousands of articles, spent countless of hours studying my genes, experimented until I found the solutions that worked for me, including using my genetic data. And I wanted to, I think it's really important. If you're not sleeping, then your life is like 50% worse, in my opinion. Really, sleep is one of the most fundamental things that you need. And if you're not sleeping well for one reason or another, maybe you're not going to sleep, maybe you're, whatever the issues, maybe you're waking up in the middle of the night, that can decrease your life satisfaction, in my opinion, by about 50%. It's just, if you don't sleep well, your whole day is worse, in my opinion. So I think this is why I made sure we had a product in Self-Decode that talked about sleep. So you're going to learn how to improve your circadian rhythm, how to find the root causes of your sleep issues, and how to identify the right changes for your own body. And I also want to mention that there's going to be a lot of things here that you won't learn anywhere else. So it's very, this is not your typical webinar of not getting, this webinar is going to be chock full of information, and you're going to get information that you won't find anywhere on the internet, I guarantee you. So improving your circadian rhythm. When we're looking at the circadian rhythm, it's here's just some genes. There's the clock genes, PER1 to PER3, and CRY1 genes. I'm going to talk about this later when I answer some people's questions, because these are some important genes to look at for specific sleep issues, right? For example, if let's say, for example, you're not feeling tired at night, this is one of the things to do. Or if you're waking up not feeling refreshed, then the circadian rhythm, those are the two areas where the circadian rhythm is going to play the most, have the most impact, right? And the truth is, it has impacts in other places, but so you'll want to check out these genes. Our sleep report, has many of these genes, and it'll flag them if they're a problem. But you can also check them out manually if you want. But these are important circadian rhythm genes, and obviously lifestyle can change the expression of these genes. So finding the root cause of your sleep issues, one of the things that I think that is really important, is when trying to find out the root cause of an issue, is looking at your blueprint, looking at what are the fundamental variants or genes that are making you more susceptible to something, and or to some sleep problem, and then also using that information to have better recommendations. So check your genes for help with solving other sleep impacting. Right. So basically, sleep is not an isolation thing. There's other things that can cause sleep issues. For example, anxiety, stress, depression, mood issues, trauma. And we talk a lot about these things on Self-Decode as well. We have reports. It could be chronic fatigue. So there's intersecting factors that you want to look at. But, but then obviously there's also sleep itself, which you want to look at. But you really have to identify if there's other factors that are disrupting your sleep. That's one of the things that you need to be looking at. I'll go through some questions and I'll identify, who I think might have a problem with that, or, when it could be a problem, like, what to look for. Okay. Identifying the right changes for your body, showing how to, okay. So a lot of people want to know what is the best supplement to help fall asleep. And I think, just knowing the best supplements, the first place to look at is the insomnia section of the sleep report. And how do I ensure restful sleep while under stress? So, for example, if you wanted to know that, you would check out your anxiety report. And then there's like questions, for example, I've had sleep quality issues for a very long time, no problem falling asleep. And not but the issue that this person has is they're not able to fall back asleep. So there's a sleep duration section in the sleep report. These are kind of just some quick tips, but we're going to go more into the specific recommendations for different things. Okay, this is just a little bit about Self-Decode, but again, we're going to be answering, this is to get a baseline of, what we're doing at Self-Decode. And, but we're going to get to your questions, and that's going to really help clarify a lot of things. So the one thing that we do is we give you natural supplement, diet, and lifestyle suggestions. So you don't want to, people get their DNA tested and then they just don't get any information from it. And it's important that any kind of service you use, you need to get recommendations for the topic that you're interested in, like sleep. And you also want to understand why that recommendation should work better for you rather than some other recommendation. And so you can understand, I think it's very important to understand the science behind the suggestions. And rather, if we don't give you the science, then I would be suspect that that some kind of product is just making up random recommendations. And the other thing is, it's important to prioritize recommendations so that you know which ones you should be trying first. And we also believe in a holistic approach, meaning that, we don't only focus on the genes. We also focus on bigger picture things as well, like the issue itself. Like, you don't only want recommendations for genes itself. I say that a lot, and I think that's very important. You don't only want to target a gene and not the issue. You want to target both of them. And okay, so let's look. You also want comprehensivity. You want to look for, like, the issue with a lot of products is that it's very limited, very narrow. They only talk about a few dozen SNPs or maybe a dozen SNPs, and that's a big problem. You want a report that's very focused on the issue, and you want it to be as comprehensive as possible. And that's something that we do at Self-Decode. And obviously, you want it to be very scientific. And my suggestion is don't give your data to a company that will sell it. So these are just some of the things. These are a lot of questions that we get. For example, does Self-Decode sell your data? No. I just want to get these out of the way. And we're giving a sleep code for 20% off, sleep 20. But now I want to just so you type in the sleep code sleep 20. But I want to get into the meat of things and start going through the Q&A, because I think that's really, this is some of the foundations that I wanted to get to, but now I want to get to people's questions. Okay. So here somebody asks, why do sleep disorders increase with age? And this could be a couple reasons. Number one is the circadian rhythm is found to kind of, you could say, get weaker with age. Sometimes you can be more deficient in different things as you age. But essentially, the circadian rhythm tends to get weaker, less, the amplitude, it gets less strong as you age. And that means that sleep quality will go down, including slow wave sleep. And that's a very common issue. How to get to sleep. So I would break up, the sleep issues by a few main things. One is getting to sleep. I would call that, it's called sleep latency. Then there's a sleep quality. And then there's waking up in the middle of the night. You could have very good sleep quality, but wake up in the middle of the night. Right. And then there's the total time of sleeping. And then there's like you want to, if you're not getting enough sleep, even if your quality is very good, a lot of people, their biology is built that they need, a certain amount of sleep, and that's very hard to change. It really is very hard to change. Everyone's built a bit differently, but some people do need more sleep in order to function better. So sleep time is very important. And then also, those are the four main things. And if you're not getting good sleep quality, you're going to wake up feeling tired. And also you're going to be tired during the day. So how to get to sleep? This is, one thing, the first thing that you want to think about if you're having issues falling asleep is if your mind is racing, if your nervous system is higher, if you have anxiety. So you can tell if your nervous system is elevated, for example, if you're biting your nails, or if you have a desire to bite your nails, if you have a desire to bite your lip, if you have inflammation, if you're like, if your brain is constantly thinking about things, it's likely that your nervous system is overactive, and it's just activating your whole system. And what that means is usually, an overactive nervous system often is either, could be from anxiety, some kind of trauma, and it's not allowing you to relax. So you're stressed out, and that causes anxiety and other issues, and you're not able to relax. So that's one of the most important things when it comes to sleep latency. And the other thing that I would say, getting to sleep. And the other thing that I would say is making sure is lighting. So lighting and nervous system health. We'll call it nervous system, but really that's just, anything that is activating your nervous system. It could be anxiety, it could be trauma, it could be depression, could be any kind of mood issue. It could be anything, but nervous system and lighting. So they do go together as well, because if you have lighting, that basically tells the nervous system to turn on. When it comes to lighting, you want you want darkness as much as possible. This is where like blackout curtains, sleep mask, and also F-Lux on your computer to darken the tone, and also to take out more blue light. And then also blue blocking glasses. So these are blue blocking glasses. And so these are good as well. I'm not putting them on right now because it's not the time for me to put them on. But essentially getting your lighting right, making sure you don't get enough light, too much light at night is very important. I would say this is the most important thing. These two things are definitely the most important things that people are dealing with. Meaning, they might think like, okay, I've got blue blocking glasses on and everything's good. And they got lights blaring out throughout their house. Okay. 1 second. Actually, 1 moment. I will be back in 1 minute. I actually left the oven on. I forgot about that. Sorry.
I don't know if my mic is off, but just to add a little bit to what Joe was mentioning. And so not just decreasing light at night, but also making sure you're getting light during the day. It's kind of unfortunate because we're told avoid the sun. The sun may increase risk of skin cancer. And so oftentimes we almost try to avoid the sun. But what's actually been found is people who have office jobs who actually get the least sunlight have the highest incidence of melanoma and skin cancer, because we actually need the sun for a lot of different things. The sun helps tell us to get awake. If we don't wake up, then how can we go to sleep at night? And so you need to get that wakefulness during the day. And when you get the sunlight hitting your eyes, it will actually begin to decrease the melatonin synthesis. So the more active you are during the day, that will help you wind down and go to sleep at night. Because if you're not active during the day, how are you going to be inactive at night? So it's that balance of the ratio. Hi, Joe. Sorry, I just want to add a little piece.
No, that was great. Actually, I appreciate that. That's part of the lighting piece, and I think that just as important as it's almost as important as shutting the lighting down at night. You want to make sure you're getting enough light in the day, and so that's part of this lighting, and it's very important to emphasize what Dr. Greg was saying about making sure you're getting enough light in the day. Another thing I would say, and this is probably, I would say a little less important, is exercise in the day. So if you don't exercise in the day, then you're going to be like more jittery at night, and it might be a little harder to fall asleep. But this, I would say, is exercise, I would say, is less important than the lighting and the nervous system. And like Dr. Greg was saying, lighting not only includes cutting out as much lighting as not at night, but also getting as much light as you can during the day. And when it comes to cutting light out at night, it's important to understand that it's the intensity of the light, so how bright the lights are, and it's the spectrum as well, right? So you don't want blue, but even some green and even some orange can decrease, alert the nervous system. But even any color of light, like red, if it's bright enough, it will alert the nervous system. So when it comes to lighting, you want no blue spectrum. You want, close to the red spectrum as much as possible. Sorry. And but close to the red spectrum as much as possible. But then you want also to lower the intensity of the light. Okay. And so it's important in your sleep report. It's a bit hard to explain all these things necessarily, but we will tell you if there's, you know, circadian rhythm genes, for example, or like, let's say if we might recommend, if we're ever recommending melatonin, then it kind of goes hand in hand with the lighting, because, you know, it means that there's genes that are affected by melatonin, and you need the lighting to be you know, proper in order to get the right levels of melatonin. But lighting in itself also has another system where it activates the nervous system. So that is independent of melatonin as well. But essentially, if you have any genes that are also related to anxiety that are affecting sleep, then you want to look, then the nervous system is very important to the picture as well. Okay. Now, what if you sleep a lot and don't have any sleep apnea? And this person is basically asking, just to summarize, I don't know why I'm tired all the time and why it's an issue. So, okay, he's basically tired all day. He's sleeping at night and he's tired. He says he sleeps a lot, but he's tired all day. This is where it could be a different issue. If somebody's tired all day, it could either be that their sleep quality is really bad, in which case they want to get a sleep tracker to look at. It could be an Oura Ring, for example. They want to look at their, you know, REM sleep and deep sleep. And if the sleep quality is good and then you're tired all day, then, for example, you want to look at your chronic fatigue report. You might want to look at if you have chronic inflammation, so you can get lab tests like CRP, upload them to Self-Decode and with the lab analyzer in Self-Decode. And so here's an example of where it's, you know, might not actually be the sleep itself, right? This person's saying they don't have sleep apnea or breathing conditions. But either way, even if you did, it's likely that you would, you know, if you're seeing that the sleep quality is good on one of these trackers, and by the way, I have the Oura Ring here, but if so, I'm testing. I look at my REM and deep sleep every night. I know how much I got, and so it's very important to, you know, if you really want to be serious about this, I think it's important to track your sleep in some way. You know, Apple Watches can technically do that as well. I don't like them because they also emit lighting. So you have to be very careful about that. But essentially, this could be a different issue that somebody's dealing with. It could be this person could be dealing with depression. They could be dealing with trauma. Who knows? What would you have to say about that, Dr. Greg?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things, right? And so that you know, in this type of situation, you have to do basically, I would say, a full kind of understanding of what are you doing throughout the day? When are you waking up? What level of activity are you doing? If you can't maintain activity, which seems to be a lot of issue, right? How can, if you're not getting good sleep and you don't have energy, how can you have the energy to exercise? And so there's a lot of different workarounds you could do around that. You know, if there's impediments with eating a healthy diet, how do you eat a healthier diet? So that you can, you know, have the nutrients that you need to sustain yourself, to have the energy. So there's a lot of different things there. And that's where I would say, make sure that you're working with a health practitioner that's knowledgeable, that can kind of help analyze these areas to figure out, well, for you specifically, what is going on. And that's also where the genetics come in as well. Maybe your genetics could be impacting something along this chain of having energy during the day, but being able to wind down at night.
Okay, great answer. So yeah, nutrition, diet, there's a lot of factors that could be relevant. It's something that you need to, you know, you want to conduct a lot of tests. You want to do sleep tests. You want to do lab tests. You want to look at your genetics in different categories. But this is, you know, you have to look at this in a holistic way. This is not necessarily a sleep issue. Okay, I'm 78, still working, need 8 hours of sleep to function. This person's saying that they wake up at or before 5 a.m. and then they go eat breakfast, they go back to bed, listen to a podcast, and fall asleep again around 8 a.m., getting the 8 hours. So basically, the main issue this person is dealing with is waking up in the middle of the night. They're essentially getting up a little too early, and they're still tired. Now, one of the most important things to do for this is, and this is something that I've dealt with as well for a very long time, and I was able to fix it. Number one, the worst thing that you can do is when you wake up at 5 a.m. or 3 a.m. is to open your eyes, and it basically is to open your eyes, right? Because it's very likely that there is some kind of lighting in the room that is going to basically alert you to some degree or another, right? Unless it's completely pitch dark, in which case you won't be able to see where anything is in the room. You will not be able to identify anything in the room. That is pitch dark, right? And so if you're sleeping with, if you have light in the room, number one, you need, so first of all, I sleep in a pretty dark room, and then I also have a sleep mask, right? And this is like a double protection against light getting into my eyes. So for example, 5 a.m., one reason that this person could be getting up at 5 a.m. is because they don't have a really good, they're getting light, basically like even a small amount of light coming in from outside because of the morning, right? And in the summer, you get some light at 5 a.m. That will be able to wake you up, right? And historically, people have woken up at the, right when any kind of light starts coming up. They went to sleep much earlier. Let's say 8 p.m. It got dark. Let's say it would get dark at 7 p.m. on average. You go to sleep at 8 p.m. and you wake up at 4 a.m., right? And that kind of makes sense, right? But when you're going to sleep at 11, 12, and then it starts to get light at 5 or 6 a.m., you will get up if your light is not completely completely screened. Now, again, it's very hard to get all the light out, and so you have to also wear a sleep mask as well, a comfortable sleep mask. So there's a lot of sleep masks out there. You got to make sure that whatever you're wearing is comfortable and that it's not falling off, because if it falls off in the middle of the night, then it doesn't help you with this problem. So that's number one. Number two is you want to make sure that you are eating enough calories in the day, and that you're eating not too far from when you go to sleep. For example, and also carbs will help with this. But essentially, if you're, let's say, eating your last meal at 5 p.m., 12 hours later, your body is going to start feeling hungry. So 5 a.m., you're going to start feeling hungry, and you're going to wake up, right? And you might get hypoglycemia, and your body has to activate the nervous system in order to counteract a potential hypoglycemia. So if you don't eat too much before, it's a problem. If you eat right before bed, it's also a big problem, right? So you need to eat around 3 hours before you go to bed, and you have to make sure that you're getting enough calories in the day. Meaning the most important thing is timing your dinner, but also getting enough calories in the day, right? Because your body, your body does sense how much, if you're in an energy deficit. But dinner is definitely the most important, and the timing of the dinner is definitely the most important. I also think number three is the nervous system, right? So the nervous system starts kicking in based on the circadian rhythm. So if the circadian rhythm is not working well, then you need to, either it's not working well or it could be working well, but it could be that you're going to sleep too late. So, for example, the thing is, you could decide when you want your circadian rhythm to be if you really, really are careful with the light. So your brain does not know when it's daytime or nighttime, as long as you have those light cycles, well done, right? As long as they're timed and good. So for example, if I'm traveling, let's say, or if I'm, sometimes I have to work late. It's not so bad to go to sleep, let's say at 12 or 1 a.m., as long as you're consistent with that and as long as your light cycles fit into that. So that means you really have to bulletproof your light when you're waking up to make sure you're not getting enough light. So, so in terms of the 5 a.m., it could be that the individual is also stressed, and basically if you're stressed out, or if you have anxiety, if your nervous system is overactive, then when the time for the circadian rhythm comes to increase cortisol to activate the nervous system, it could activate too much, and then you wake up and you can't go back to sleep. But I find that in general it has to do with the lighting. So if you're waking up at 5 a.m. and you know that that's not enough sleep for you, do not take off your sleep mask. Do not open your eyes. If you open your eyes, you're pretty much, you're activating the nervous system, essentially, right? There's light. You have to just keep your eyes closed, keep your sleep mask on, and you will go back to sleep in like 15 minutes or something like that. Rather, if you wake up, eat something. First of all, this person's training their circadian rhythm to be so that they wake up every 5 a.m. Basically, part of the circadian rhythm training is that is when you're eating. So if you train your body to eat at 6 a.m. every day, your body is going to start getting up at 5 a.m. because it knows it's time to eat at 6. So this person is doing quite a few this person could be doing quite a few things wrong. I bet they're probably doing they're not. I would bet they're not doing the things that I'm saying, because if they were, then they would be sleeping all night. But I mean, it also depends on what their genes are. So it's very important to look at the genes as well, because again, it could be different kinds of issues. Is it from anxiety? Is it from the overactive nervous system? Is it from maybe that this person is maybe their quality of sleep is not so good. Maybe their deep sleep is not so good. It's something that you really have to look at in a holistic way. Would you have anything to add for that, Dr. Greg?
I think those are excellent points. Absolutely. So the light, big factor. How is your blood sugar at night? This a lot of different variants will be implicated in that. A lot of clock gene SNPs could be implicated in your ability to maintain adequate glucose levels. There's variants in the SIRT1 gene that are going to be implicated in that. Also the melatonin receptor. And so let's not forget. So we have to, one, our melatonin, as it increases as it gets nighttime, that's going to keep us asleep, and cortisol, as that increases, is going to wake us up. And so, sometimes we got to figure out, okay, is that person having too low melatonin or too high cortisol? Are they either spiking when they wake up, the cortisol, or is the melatonin tanking? And again, one reason melatonin would go down is because it's just getting light. Not so. Just my trick is I used to wear an eye patch for a long time, but then I just said, you know what, I'm tired of messing with it. I put up blackout shades. And so if you get really good blackout shades, and I know sometimes it's difficult and you have like windows in the ceiling and whatnot, but if you put blackout shades, you can keep really dark. But then you get into the issue of, well, you do want some light to get into your room to wake you up when it's appropriate. And so there's lamps that you could get that kind of dim up and kind of get a little bit lighter to wake you up. So that's another thing too. But yeah, so another thing too is when you are waking up at 5 a.m., are you having thoughts about stressful things, your job or some other stressful event? Are you ruminating when you wake up? Because that then feeds back into the anxiety thing, which, Joe, if you could let them know how to get access to that anxiety webinar, because there's a lot of good information we covered in there as far as ways to kind of mitigate anxiety. But that could absolutely be factoring into this kind of waking up in the middle of the night picture. That could be, kind of disturbing sleep. And yeah, and also the habits. If we get used to doing a certain thing in bed, that's what we get used to. And so the thing we do in bed is we wake up halfway through a sleep cycle and listen to a podcast. That's what our body expects. That's what our mind expects, and it will continue doing it. So you got to kind of break the cycle in order to reset the cycle.
Those are all excellent points. The blood sugar was a great point. Yeah, all the points were excellent. So I think, yeah, I think let's move on to the next question. And by the way, I agree that the anxiety webinar was really good. We should send people. I mean, anyone. I mean, hopefully, we'll send people. Everyone who went on this webinar, we'll send them as well the anxiety webinar because that was really good. Also, Sleep 20. Just if anyone came later, I noticed a lot of people came later. Sleep 20 for 20% off a Self-Decode. Let's go to the next question. I go to sleep but awaken before daylight with a weird feeling. The closest thing I can compare it to is feeling of fear. So right away, I know that this person has a nervous system / stress / anxiety issue, right? Checking your cortisol is not going to make a difference. And I mean, so blood sugar is something you want to check, but in this person said they checked it. I would upload the results to the lab analyzer and Self-Decode just to make sure that they're optimal. But let's assume that they are, these levels are good. It doesn't mean that the individual does not have a nervous system issue, right? So sometimes a little shaky too. Melatonin makes things worse. I would say that this person has to deal with underlying nervous system, mental health, anxiety issue. And again, it's not something that they might be conscious of because it's very hard to, people think of anxiety as, something like, oh, people are just anxious all the time or whatever. It's very hard to put yourself in the perception of a different person. So you don't know what anxiety is until you get rid of it. Right. And so it's very hard to think about what that even means. Right. Everybody, I mean, it's extremely common thing to have anxiety. Right. I think you don't have to be diagnosed with it to have it. I would say 90% of people are having anxiety. The question is, does that interfere with your sleep? For some people, it does. And that's something that you need to take care of. In this case, I would say that the individual has to take care of their underlying mood issues, even if during the day they don't feel they have any issues. So one thing that can work for this potentially, and again, you have to look at your genes because some people, when it comes to serotonin, they don't do as well with it. Some people do very well with it. It depends on the individual, but essentially, taking 5-HTP sometime, maybe 5 p.m. in the evening, but not too close to sleep, can make sure you're getting enough serotonin at night, and that might help alleviate the anxiety issues. We're actually going to be coming up with a mood supplement. And the reason we're coming up with that is because, we asked, okay, what are people having the biggest issue with that is, what affects all the other issues that we feel we can help a lot. And mood issues is huge, right? Because if you're stressed out, it can affect your sleep. It can affect it can affect your, like, any kind of condition you have. So it's but in any case, this is pretty clear to me that it has to do with the nervous system issue. What do you think, Dr. Greg?
Just a couple points. And just so people understand, serotonin will be converted into melatonin. So that's kind of the link there. And also you want serotonin levels. Serotonin, if it's in excess, can be wakeful. So you want to make sure your serotonin levels are good. One point I want to make is for cortisol. Cortisol, there's a rhythm. If you saw two people dancing and you just saw a snapshot, you wouldn't know what kind of dance moves they're doing. But if you saw it kind of playing out, you would be able to know what the dance looks like. If you see, so cortisol, sometimes when you go to your doctor and you get your cortisol checked, it's just one snapshot, but you don't know where you're at during that level. And so there's something called a 4-point cortisol test. Usually it's saliva, where they look at sort of 4 different points. Sometimes if somebody's having sleep issues and they wake up during the day, I like to get them have them do the cortisol test then to see, is cortisol spiking then? Sometimes cortisol tests will include melatonin as well, so you could see where both hormones are at during that time. But So I would definitely recommend, and again, even if we're talking about blood sugar too, just a fasting blood glucose might not be enough. You need to also look at something called HbA1c, which is sort of a long-term measure of your blood glucose, 3 months to be exact. So those two things really just kind of clarify how we can make the connection with the labs.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I really like that. Okay, let's go to this one. My genotype for RS6265 is this, okay? Associated with having the slowest wave activity. So this person found this on Self-Decode. So that means that they usually wake up and have trouble falling back asleep. So is there a way to increase slow wave sleep for later cycles? The answer is, so first of all, slow wave sleep, you get more in the earlier parts of the night, and you get more REM sleep later in the night. So soon after you go to sleep, and basically the first part of the night is when you're getting the most slow wave sleep. That happens. That's very normal. And then the second part of the night, you get much more REM sleep. So this person has a variant that causes their slow wave sleep to be an issue. And I believe this has to do with the serotonin receptor. Oh, no, this is BDNF. Okay. So this is a really good point, actually, right? This is why genes can be so important in knowing, what to do for the sleep issue. So this person's BDNF gene is associated with having associated with having the slowest wave activity in the first slow wave sleep cycle. So if there's an issue with their slow wave sleep and they have variants in the BDNF gene, then you want to make sure you're getting enough light in the day. That is and exercise. So exercise and light in the day basically are the two most potent increasers of BDNF. And when you have BDNF increased in the day, that makes your slow wave sleep much better at night. So this is a great example of somebody having variants in the BDNF gene. And in this case, you want to make sure you're increasing your BDNF in the day and that you're not doing that at night. Some of the problems with one of the reasons I don't recommend most supplements at night, is because they increase BDNF. And that's a problem when you don't want BDNF to be increased at night. You want it to be increased in the day. And that makes sense when it comes to the light rhythm, the light cycle, and things like that. Okay. And also the exercise cycle, right? People would exercise or move around in the daytime, and they would rest and go to sleep at night. Okay. I take 1 milligram melatonin mixed with relaxing herbs before bedtime, sleep for about 5 to 6 hours, and then wake up. During the day, I usually feel sleepy at about 5 a.m. What can I do to have replenishing sleep and feel energetic throughout the day? So basically, in this person's case, I think that the issue is they're just not sleeping enough. 5 to 6 hours is not sleeping enough for 99% of people. There's very few people that are optimal at 5 to 6 hours. And so this person just needs to sleep more. And, I don't want to speak too much about, basically we spoke a lot. I spent a lot of time on certain questions because I thought it was a framework for later questions. But essentially, this person is not sleeping enough. They're waking up. It's similar to the other things that we discussed. Are they not exercising during the day enough, right? Do they have a problem with their BDNF gene? Do they have stress-related genes that they're waking up for? Why are they waking up too early? Why are they not getting 5 to 6 hours? It could be as simple as that they go to sleep too late, right? But even if they go to sleep too late, as long as they do that consistently, they should still sleep more than 5 to 6 hours. Can seasonal SAD, seasonal affective disorder, bring on anxiety that then causes insomnia? Yes, it can. And the reason is because, first of all, seasonal affective disorder is a circadian rhythm issue. We do mention it in the sleep report, but basically anxiety and depression are very close disorders in biology. And the reason is because Anxiety, if you have stress and anxiety, that can provoke depression. It's one of the most common provokers of depression is actually anxiety. And one of the reasons that's the case is because anxiety and stress, it lowers BDNF, for example. And BDNF is really important to be happy, is to be in a good mood. And it also does a bunch of other things. But just for the sake of simplicity, having chronic stress and anxiety will shrink your hippocampus and change your brain structure in different ways that will make you more depressed. And so if you're having, let's say, seasonal, and depression can also increase anxiety. They really go both ways. So this is really important when it comes to the sleep. I think this person should be looking at the mood report, and also, light in the day is also very important for seasonal affective disorder. Okay. So as soon as the sun goes down, I've gone into a cycle of panic to no sleep. It's very clear here that the individual is dealing with some kind of mood issue that they need to fix. Here, an individual asks about their melatonin genes, and they basically have risk variants for their melatonin genes, which is important to look at. And they also have a gene that slows the breakdown of melatonin. So I'm assuming they found this in Self-Decode. How do I modify when the genes are both slow breakdown and decreased response to melatonin? So one way is to make sure your light at night is, taken care of. You got the blue blocking glasses. You're going to secrete more melatonin at night. And also, of course, so the lighting is a huge factor. And that's why I spoke about that, because, if you have variants like these, right, in which case you need more melatonin. I spoke about that in the beginning, so you can rewind a bit and get some of that information. But also, we see that there's genes involved in the breakdown of melatonin. And so basically, I'm offhand, I'm not 100% sure how this gene works in terms of the breakdown. It's slowing the breakdown of melatonin. Maybe what that could mean is an individual should wear blue blocking glasses earlier, right? So that, they increase the melatonin earlier, perhaps. But I'm curious what your opinions are on this question, Dr. Greg.
Sure. I was actually reading about this a little bit last night. So this specific, the gene product of MTNR1B is expressed in the beta islet cells of the pancreas. These are the same cells that will be producing insulin. And so if our diet is going to be really crucial with this, because if we're eating foods that are constantly spiking insulin and spiking glucose, we're going to be causing abnormal expression of this protein. And so this one is, as Joe had mentioned, light, absolutely very important. Also, the diet and the content of the diet. And so individuals with this may want to trend towards a more lower carb diet and a more high fat diet. So you're not causing or just avoiding things that would be contributing to abnormal fluctuations in glucose that would be affecting the insulin levels. And so I'd say that's a big one for this particular variant.
Yeah, so that's where the holistic approach comes in, because as you can see that it's not only related to melatonin, but it also is related to blood sugar, right? And those are related. So yeah, it's when it comes to your genes, you really have to look at many, you got to there's some people with elevated, either elevated blood sugar or hypoglycemic. And so we have a blood sugar report as well, by the way. So if you're struggling with elevated blood sugar, I would recommend that report. I have days that I can fall asleep all day, and then there's days I don't. Why is that? It's like I'm sleeping okay 1 minute and the next not sleeping, or I'm up all night and I go to bed the same time every night. Why is this? This sounds like a mood issue. If they're relaxed, they can go to sleep. If they're not, they're ruminating in their thoughts and they're up all night. Or it could be that, something they did in the day and they don't realize, like maybe they were getting a lot of light one day and a lot of exercise, and then the next day they weren't. What do you think about this, Dr. Greg?
And that's a really excellent point. And the thing they mentioned there at the end is, will this stop sleep apnea? If you have sleep apnea, there's lots of different, and the degree of sleep apnea, are you stopping breathing at night? That's also going to be affecting your body wants to breathe at night. Your body wants oxygen. And so, if that's the case, then you have to figure out, what is causing that, and do you need? Sometimes people need an appliance for the sleep apnea. So, I think that might be also having your doctor kind of guide if there's something additional that needs to be done. Because if there's sleep apnea, there's going to be some rough nights and there's going to be some good nights, with a lot of things impacting both.
That's a really good point. Okay. How do I make sleep more restorative? Is it really true that sleep you get before midnight has a lot of health benefits? So instead of before midnight, after midnight, if you can control your light cycles, then the midnight is whatever midnight you make it to be, more or less, right? But essentially, you want to go to sleep at the best at the times that are best for you, meaning when you normally go to sleep. So because your body is trained to do that, it gets into that rhythm. And so it's not necessarily before midnight, but I mean, for most people it is before midnight because, it gets dark and there is it depends what time they're waking up, right? So if they're getting light, let's say at 6 a.m., then that trains the circadian rhythm in a certain way. Doesn't matter what time you went to sleep, right? So if you go to sleep at 4 a.m. and you wake up at 6 a.m., the light is going to it retrains your circadian rhythm to say, today, the start of the day is 6 a.m. The end of the day should be, the end of the day should be 8 p.m. or whatever it is, right? Or 9 p.m. So it's whenever you start to feel more tired, that is a cue that, your circadian rhythm is telling you to go to sleep. This person's asking, is napping okay? How long is too long to sleep? I don't think there's too long to sleep, to be honest. I think if you're getting good quality sleep, then you shouldn't sleep more than 8 hours, right? If you're getting good quality sleep, I don't see how it's possible really to sleep more than 8 hours on a long-term basis, unless you're dealing with, some kind of underlying illness or inflammation or some kind of health issue. But assuming no underlying issue, I don't think it's, almost not possible on average to sleep more than 8 hours if your sleep quality is very good, right? I mean, it's about 8 hours, right? It could be 7.5 to 8.5, but essentially that's like an amount that, you shouldn't need more than. And I don't think you should be napping. If you're napping in the day, it means that you didn't get good sleep at night. So you want to find out why that happened. Yeah. What do you think, Dr. Greg?
So I'm a professional napper. I love napping. Napping is kind of how I catch up on sleep. But with that said, studies have shown that if you nap for 20 minutes, it can be good. It's restorative for the brain. If you nap for 90 minutes or longer, what could then happen is you actually will disrupt your sleep cycle and maybe having difficulty sleeping that night. So just keep that in mind, that if you've napped for very long, you may impair your ability to fall asleep later on that night. And then also, yeah, so if you are depressed and you're lying in bed and you're sleeping 9, 10 hours, there's another issue there. And so it is possible that, too much sleep could be a bad thing, depending on why. If you had a several days where you slept 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, and you caught up for 10 hours, I see no problem with that, because then you're just kind of restoring yourself from the lack of sleep that you've had previously. So I'm a big fan of, if you need to nap a little bit, that's fine. And if you need to catch up on sleep, that's fine. But, you have to make sure that eventually, as Joe was saying, there's a regular rhythm to your sleep. That's the ideal thing that you want to shoot for here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, so first of all, if you need a nap, then it's okay. And you don't want to do it too long. Less, because if you nap for like 3-4 hours, you're going to have a harder time going to sleep that night. So napping is okay, especially a short nap. Yeah. All right, moving on. I have morphed into a dual sleeper, waking up around 4, getting back to sleep around 6 a.m. So we already discussed this. This shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't be waking up at 4 a.m., getting to sleep at 6 a.m. I take a sleeping pill. You want to be very careful with sleeping pills, just because I find a lot of herbal stuff can be diuretics, and they might make you pee at night. So if you're peeing in the middle of the night, then that is a problem, right? And so you want to be careful with that stuff. Some of them are good. They take some CBD gummies to sleep. Otherwise, I don't sleep. Is there anything else I can do? So if they're taking CBD gummies to sleep, it probably has to do with an anxiety problem, falling asleep, or some kind of stress, nervous system, anxiety. When I say anxiety, it really encompasses, it could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be a nervous system issue. It's a broad issue where your nervous system is activated and you need to take something to calm it down. So I would refer back to what we discussed about before, but I don't think dual sleeping is the best thing. You should not wake up for 2 hours. If you wake up for 15 minutes, that's okay. If you wake up and you wake up for 15 minutes, you go back to sleep, fine. Not 2 hours. I would say that's too much. In terms of like if you want optimal sleep, how to eliminate or reduce waking up several times in the night. Is low cortisol a possible factor? That is a possible factor if you have blood sugar issues and low cortisol, but usually higher cortisol is more of an issue. But we spoke about this many times. What my REM numbers are low via the R ring data, nearly always less than 1 hour, sometimes as little as 6 to 7 minutes. That is a big problem, despite feeling rested and getting 2 hours of deep sleep. How do I specifically increase my REM minutes? So I'm going to teach you a very unique hack here. I found that one of the things to increase REM sleep is reishi mushrooms. And it's, there's like 20 different kinds of reishi mushrooms that I've tried. Some of them are actually awakening. When it comes to certain herbs like reishi, it could be, you can have like 20 different effects from 20 different herbs, depending on where they're from, how they're extracted. I find the one, there's a 4-sigmatic reishi sleep tea. And I've tested that for quite a while. And I found that it increased my REM sleep because naturally my REM sleep is also a bit lower, never 6 to 7 minutes. But actually my REM sleep was before, I think, an hour and a half, but you want it to be over 2 hours. And I got it over to 2 hours. So now I get like 2 hours of REM and I'll get 3.5 hours of deep sleep via the Aura Ring data, sometimes 3 hours. The REM and the deep sleep do, compete with each other. So if you start getting more REM, you'll get less deep sleep as well. But yeah, you could see, this is an example. So yesterday, I'm just, this is my Aura data, and you could see that my REM sleep was 1 hour and 50 minutes, which is good. And then my deep sleep was 3 hours and 23 minutes, which is very good. So 1 hour and 49 minutes is still good. It's still a good amount. But this person is saying 6 to 7 minutes. That is a very big issue. Okay. Can a person continuously take melatonin? Dr. Greg, do you have any ways to increase REM sleep? Oh, another one that I would just mention is making sure you're getting enough choline, because choline basically increases REM sleep. So acetylcholinesterase inhibitors can work on that. Yeah, I think if you're not getting REM sleep, even if you don't have any issues from that, like let's say you feel despite feeling rested, it will impact your memory, right? Because REM sleep allows you to remember things. It does a lot of things in the body. So making sure you're getting enough, your brain has enough acetylcholine with enough choline. So that could be from alpha GPC. It could be from something like huperzine A. But that is, I prefer the reishi mushroom tea. But I also do the make sure my choline levels, my acetylcholine levels are good. Dr. Greg, what would you have to say about that?
Yeah, so in preparing for this, I was trying to look at the melatonin content in foods, and mushrooms of all different sorts had the highest, well, the second highest amount of melatonin compared to many other foods. And so other foods were around like sometimes 5 nanograms per gram or sometimes 20. Mushrooms were 4,000 to 5 to 6,000 nanograms per gram of melatonin. And so there's lots of melatonin in there. The number one thing was pistachios, which was 200,000 nanograms per gram. And so it's the only other food that's a little bit of more melatonin. I'll eat some pistachios at night for melatonin.
Why don't you just take melatonin?
Well, because sometimes I want to stabilize the blood sugar. And so the pistachios or some food items would help with the, I actually will take melatonin as well. Let's put it that way. But some people don't want to take the supplement. But then also, so if I'm not getting REM sleep, it's likely because I had too much caffeine during the day. And so my kind of hack is to take theanine. Theanine will help increase REM sleep, but it will also help counteract the sort of excessive effects of caffeine. And so that's kind of my go-to thing there.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So one of the biggest blockers of REM sleep and slow wave sleep. So the worst things that you can do for sleep, and we haven't mentioned this before, is marijuana, alcohol, and also caffeine, right? So, and you can, you'll see if you do any of these things, your sleep numbers are going to go down. It's just, even if you have no problem with it, there was an interesting, I was listening to an interesting talk by a sleep expert, and he was basically saying that, there's some people who they smoke a lot of pot, and then let's say they go clean for a month, and then they get the craziest dreams ever. And why does that happen? Because there's something called REM rebound. Basically, when you're like, if you haven't been getting REM sleep for a long time, you have to make it up at some point in the future, right? And he was saying that you can make it up to a year later, which is crazy. How are you making up REM sleep a year later? But you can make up REM sleep. Like, I don't recommend that, of course, right? But this just goes to show you, if you don't sleep one night, you could make it up the next night for the most part. But people are lacking REM sleep because they're taking drugs, whether it's alcoholics, it happens to alcoholics as well, or marijuana, like heavy marijuana users. They're lacking REM sleep, and then all of a sudden they have this REM rebound, and they're getting crazy dreams, and they're hallucinating. Also, if you don't get REM sleep for too long, so like it happens to some alcoholics, you could start hallucinating, because they're not getting it at night, and your body just decides to get some REM sleep during the day, and you're just you're basically like dreaming during the day. So yeah, essentially your body needs REM sleep to survive, and alcohol and marijuana will kill the REM sleep, and caffeine can also cause issues with REM or deep sleep. Can a person continuously take melatonin to improve sleep, as I'm worried that my pineal gland will calcify sooner? I don't have any, I haven't seen anything about that. I mean, I personally take melatonin if I don't have the chance to put on my blue blocking glasses early enough. But if I put on my blue blocking glasses, then I do not take melatonin. But I'm not worried. I've gone through periods where it was just hard to wear the blue blocking glasses, hard to control my light cycles and, the light at night. And I, took melatonin for quite some time. I'm not personally worried that the pineal gland will calcify sooner. What do you think about that, Dr. Greg?
Yeah, I'm not worried about that either. And melatonin is turning into one of those things where even now, before it was just melatonin and sleep. Now we're finding, well, melatonin is actually associated with a lot of things, associated with heart disease, associated with obesity and metabolic syndrome. And there's so many things that is impacting our ability to make melatonin during the day and secrete it at night. And so you know, it's kind of hard for me to say, oh yeah, you know, you want to taper off melatonin. As long as there's still these factors that are decreasing melatonin, I'm not opposed to taking it for a good amount of time.
Okay, so yeah, basically, we've had 183 questions, and almost, I mean, a lot of them will fall under one of these categories. We're still getting more of these questions, and I think it's really important to take a holistic look. You really have to step back, think about a lot of the ideas that I said, check out your genes. And you know, sleep is not, people think like, oh, sleep, I should just sleep well and everything should be everything should be fine. Oh, it turns out that 70% of people have some kind of sleep issue. So that doesn't really work very well, right? And the people who don't have a sleep issue, they don't think they do, but if you check their data, they're probably not, their sleep quality is probably not very great, right? And so these are just the people who are aware that they have a sleep issue, which is important to know, right? A lot of people are just tired in the day and they're like, I don't know why I'm tired, but I guess I sleep very well though. No, they probably don't. Or they might not, you know. So the important thing is that you really have to, sleep is something that you have to approach in a strategic way. If we're having a takeaway here, you really need to look at a whole bunch of scenarios, a whole bunch of situations, and you need to look at, you know, what is going on in terms of, you know, your sleep. So some of the things, let's see, did I not mention anything? Glycine in general is a good supplement to improve sleep quality. That's but you know, it's something you also want to check your genes. But I would say that's a general good one that doesn't make you pee. It doesn't. It makes you more refreshed in the day. So that's one of the few general kinds of sleep suggestions that I would have that could broadly be used for many people. And I make sure, you know, glycine is something healthy to get anyway. So I make sure to get, you know, 3 grams in the day, and collagen has glycine. So that's very important. Otherwise, there is no one sleep hack that is going to solve all your issues. You have to understand and look strategically, what is it that is causing your sleep issues? And then you can start to understand what is going on. Let's see if let's see. Victoria, do we want to go through questions, or are we over the time too much? Like questions from the Zoom chat.
There are a few questions in there if you want to go through a few. There aren't too many, but there are a few in there.
I'm just so somebody says some people are not as sensitive to light. I don't believe that that's true. I mean, there's different sensitivities to light, and there's different genes for that as well. But I think that it's something that, you know, I didn't think I was someone who was sensitive to light, quote unquote, until, you know, I did, until I, you know, started doing my sleep hacks. Okay. So, yeah, I don't see too many questions here. Somebody that, yeah, so I think we're going to end it here. And, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Okay. So thank you everyone for coming, and I hope you got some great information out of this. There was a lot of things that we discussed that you're just not going to get anywhere else. But yeah, the main thing that the main takeaway is that you need to really think about and test, you know, where your sleep problems are coming from. And so to do that, there could be some lab tests, genetics, or just like looking at how your sleep, you know, what kind of sleep problem you have and what could be the issue. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Greg. And we will be in touch. Have a great day. Bye-bye.